The Formula of the Sun. Copyright 2003-2004 by Ian Oxier. All rights reserved. The consensus among early societies was that woman was the source of life. Woman was observed to give birth, nurturing children upon the white blood of her breasts. This primitive view was akin to that of a child that has not yet grasped the concept of sexual intercourse, but understands that babies come from a woman's body. Primitive people, much like children, believing that the woman was the source of life, began to think of woman, or the archetypal woman, as God. They had not yet grasped the fact that a woman alone, without a man's seed, cannot become pregnant and give birth. The archetypal goddess came to be associated with the moon in many different cultures. The heavenly symbols, the sun, moon, and stars, were universally adopted because they are visible from any place upon the earth. A woman's monthly menstrual cycle of approximately 30 days corresponds to the waxing and waning of the moon, which reflects its capacity for fertility, or its capacity to receive the light of the sun. People during this eon believed that God was a woman, initially patterned their societies as matriarchies. The goddess rules. The Egyptian Isis, Sumerian Inanna, the Babylonian Ishtar, etc. Some societies during this time were categorized by cannibalism. This was reflective of the woman taking life into her body during coitus. With the progression of knowledge, man began to gain a clearer perspective of the cosmos. The recognition that it is in fact the male that sacrifices his seed to the female ushered forth the paternal society. Almost universally, God came to be associated with male deities symbolized by the sun. The sun was recognized as a source of life. The sun's rays gave life to the planet. As the male semen, the phallus dies, loses potency to the womb during intercourse. The moon goddess reflected his light. True to the law of Hermes, as below, or as above, so below, also as within, so without, this came to be reflected in the cultivation of agriculture, the sowing of the land, planting the seed. At this time, a new eon, an erroneous observation of nature was made. The sun was thought to die each day when it set, just as the male sacrificed his seed to give life. To alleviate the fear that the sun died each morning to resurrect anew, societies cultivated the drama of the dying god. With the changing of the seasons came a further concern. Would the sun survive a yearly death? The story of Jesus, predated by tales of similar gods such as Osiris, Orpheus, Dionysus, Adonis, etc., is one such example. In addition to its daily death, the sun died to resurrect in the spring after the observed death of crops in the winter. The sun was perceived to rise or resurrect in the east, and this may be the source of the word Easter, East-er, which takes place in the spring. This pattern was also assimilated internally. Philosophically and existentially, the moon was a symbol of the mind, which reflected the sun or awareness. The inner sun of consciousness set for each individual daily during unconsciousness that came with sleep. Note, the god Set strives against the solar deity Horus in Egyptian mythos and avenges his slain father Osiris, his solar deity. Socrates once said, "It was the sun, then, that I meant when I spoke of that offspring, which the good has created in the visible world, to stand there in the same relation to vision and visible things as that which the good itself bears in the intelligible world, to intelligence and to intelligible objects." Magical formula evolved from older formula. As humanity's ability to perceive itself and the universe increases, a change in the consciousness of the race necessitates a change in magical formula. It is not that the old formula doesn't work anymore. It's just that the new one works so much better. This is from Lone Milo Duquette, The Magic of Aleister Crowley, which was originally published as The Magic of Thelema. Today we are under the illusion, today few are under the illusion that the sun suffers death, and yet many religious institutions such as Christianity, Buddhism, and Freemasonry are based on the outdated formula of the dying God and the sacrifice of the ego. For example, in Masonry, the master sits in the east because the master represents the sun, or the Son of God. In the allegory of Hiram, the master is slain and resurrected. Parallel with these changes in perspective and quantum theory came the realization that the observer is an inextricable component in the universal process. We also know that without the ego, there can be no non-ego. One defines the other. There must be a balance between the two if we are to come to a more complete and effective understanding of the universe in which we live. The fact is that both mother and father are essential for a child's growth. Indeed, all life in the universe comes from the interplay of opposites. In Taoism, the yin and yang either produce life or return to the original source of all, or zero. +1 plus -1 equals 0. Kabbalistically, this is known as no thing and represents the original riddle of existence, how everything came from nothing. Crowley states, serious philosophy has always begun by discarding all puerilities. It has of necessity been divided into these schools, the nihilist, the monist, and the dualist. The last of these is, on the surface, the most plausible, for almost the first thing that we notice on inspecting the universe is what the Hindu schools call the pair of opposites. It must be remembered that although the female appears to be the source of life, she is barren and ineffective without her counterpart, and this is equally true of the male. The seed needs the fertility of Mother Earth in order to produce life. A child is the product of both its parents. We must not create a division between the levels, but recognize that a complete understanding of any given topic comes from a deep realization of the unity between body, mind, and spirit. Science came to confusion when it tried to separate the observer from the observed. Those that choose to minimize the importance of balance, one must cultivate one's skill in both art as well as the sciences, are guilty of the same. The truth is gleaned from scientific, mystical, magical observations of processes and experiences, not by sophisticated arguments prompted or supported by logic alone. The mind is limited, being simply a vehicle of the unconditioned self or consciousness. The importance of male and female polarities. Opposing qualities are often viewed as either conflicting or mutually complementing one another. Religious and social institutions have been primarily responsible for cultivating a perception of the universe that has led to a battle between the sexes. The Aeon of Osiris ushered forth the patriarchal society we see predominant in most of the societies in the world today. The former Aeon had stressed the importance of the female, and with it, the maternal society. These two are now being recognized as equally essential to life in the universe. The product of the interaction between the opposites is what produces a third factor. A balance between these polarities is essential to a child's growth, sustenance, and development. Stephanie Kuntz writes in an article called The American Family, hands-on fathers make better parents than men who let their wives do all the nurturing and child care. They raise sons who are more expressive and daughters who are more likely to do well in school, especially in math and in science. Marriage was originally spiritual rather than a state contract. The symbols of marriage reflect the unity between male and female. The act of copulation is graphically depicted in the symbolism of the ring and the finger. We find various symbols, rituals, and laws mirrored in the perceived processes of the universe, and that various concepts hold true for more than one level. For example, metaphysically, the woman in Egyptian magic is best conceived as the goddess Nuit, possessing the qualities of infinite space and infinite expansion. Her counterpart, the male Hadit, represents infinite contraction, a star, a sun, the self, the point of view, the I am. Nuit is ascribed to the number 0, while Hadit to the number 1. Their union implies transcendence of the opposites. The union between 1 and 0 depicts the sexual act. In Kabbalistic terms, it is the angel Metatron that crowns the child with consciousness, even as the woman's womb crowns the child's head at birth. This is also the reason why the crown represents authority. Only the one that has achieved higher consciousness has the right to rule. This is because a true king must be fair. In order to be truly impartial, one must judge from the vantage point of perfect empathy, and this can only be achieved by transcending the limited individual point of view. The rightful ruler must perceive the big picture. As Socrates rightfully said, the philosopher must be king. In the technological sphere, the computer is based on bits, which can be either ones or zeros. Through numeric abstraction, using values for on and off, metaphysically parallel to existence and non-existence, we arrive at other possible numbers. In a computer, everything is represented in this manner, and an entire virtual universe may be constructed. Quantum physics tells us that matter is made up of mostly nothing. In their book, Awakening Healing Light of the Tao, Montauk and Maniwan Chia observe, Taoists refer to the first observable variation of the universal force, which emanates from the Wu Qi, as yin and yang. The two qualities of this force can be understood as positive and negative poles of the primordial energy. Yin and yang are inseparable tendencies of all energy, and it is impossible to have one without the other. Their interactions are the root of all universal action, hence the polarity of yin and yang is a factor intrinsic to all creation. Physically, we witness this process in the growth of plants. We know that everything starts with an idea. The idea must be nurtured in order to come into manifestation. A seed is planted, nurtured by the sun and elements until it grows to adulthood. In a magic ritual, the magician, the one, a phallus, sun, stands erect in the circle 0, a hole, a womb, ejaculating ideas. He is also the sun consciousness, which brings the unconscious ideas to light, nurturing them with the 4 elements. The cross has 4 sides: air, fire, water, and earth. The implication is that we are using a system of divine geometry. The pentagram, like the cross, is a symbol of the human body. It represents, among other more sublime and sophisticated concepts, the 5 extremities of the human body: the head, the 2 arms out in the form of the cross, with the 2 legs apart instead of together, which would form the cross instead. And in magic we have the Kabbalistic cross. This is a depiction of the great rite, which is practice. Wicca also is patterned on the formula of the sun, moon goddess, and the drama of the dying god, in which the oak king, the sun god of the waxing year, and the holly king, sun god of the waning year, represent 2 aspects of the sun god in the phases death and resurrection, as it progresses through its yearly cycle. A true witch is not a gullible individual who spouts mumbo-jumbo and expects something to happen. A witch or a magician understands the laws of the universe are reflected on many planes and how to apply this knowledge to practical ends. Indeed, the path of the wise satisfies all questions, and it is clear that all questions are answered with all answers. Now, some of the concepts that fall under matriarchies. Our mother is the source of life, to recap. Ignorance of the facts regarding sex and birth. The moon, and the numbers 9, 0, and 2. The mind, unconsciousness. Third eye, mind's eye, not self, the mirror. Monthly cycles, lunar cycles. Monday or moon day, earth. Womb, earth, 0. Magic circle, 0. Crown, 0. Hunters, gatherers. The goddesses Isis, Inanna, Ishtar, Nuit. Yin, space, no thing. Isness or Isis, duality, two hemispheres of the mind, Omega. Concepts that fall under patriarchies. The goddess is viewed as a consort of the god. Father is the source of life. The sun, the number 6 and 1. Moon, reflecting the light of the sun. Consciousness, self, awareness. Solar cycles, the formula of the dying solar god. Easter, the sun rises in the east. Pattern of the apparent death, apophis, and resurrection of the sun. Sunday, daily, and with the change of seasons. And the ignorance of the fact that the sun does not die. Formulas corresponding to this are INRI and Iao, planting of the seed, the one, phallus, the one, the magician, the one, sacrifice of the male potency to the female in sexual intercourse, agriculture, plowing the fields, earth, the gods Osiris, Jesus, Orpheus, Hercules, Dionysus, Attis, Adonis, Hadit. In Masonry, we have the myth of Hiram Abiff, who is symbolized as being slain and raised to take a seat in the east. And this corresponds to the yang. Now, the third level corresponds to the child. And these are 2 eons corresponding to the son and to the daughter, Horus and Mot. And this is a gender-free society, reconciles and transcends the previous 2 eons. For Horus, we have Mars and 5. Horus, Rahurkut, Thelema, continuity of existence, physical immortality. Universe is realized as a sort of virtual reality composed of binary interaction between 1 and 0. The magician, 1 in the circle, 0. Existence, 1, and non-existence, 0. Socrates is philosopher king, crowned by 0. A righteous ruler capable of making decisions based on his capacity to realize the big picture. Solomon, Sol Amon, Sol, sun, and Amon, the Egyptian god of the moon. Conjoined, sun and moon, symbols of the Holy Grail, enlightenment, conjunction of consciousness, mind's eye, reflection on the individual existence, and the solution to the existential dilemma. We also find this in technology, most prominently in NASA. Choice of names, Apollo and the moon. Apollo is, of course, the god of the sun going to the moon, which is basically the process of reflection on existence, externalized. And 6 and 9. This also corresponds to industry. 1969, the middle pillar. This is also the establishment of one world religion based on science and magic, balance between ego and non-ego, self and not self, man, woman, body, consciousness. Previous eon corresponded to a point in space, a star, a sun, a point of view, transcendence of the ego. Note that the days of the week were named after various gods, ascribed to corresponding planets, the sun to Sunday, moon to Monday, Mars to the god Tuesday, Mercury to Woden, Wednesday, Jupiter to Thursday or Thor's day, Venus to Freya, Friday, Saturn to Saturday. Notice also that the course of the eons corresponds to the progression of the days in the week. The sun, Sunday, father impregnates the moon, Monday, mother giving birth to Tuesday, which corresponds to Horus, the crowned and conquering child. Note that the next eon, that of the goddess Twice, justice, which comes after the eon of Horus, combines the gods Thought and Mot. Also note, a woman's monthly cycle of approximately 30 days corresponds to the waxing and waning of the moon, as mentioned previously, which reflects its capacity for fertility, or to receive the light of the sun. Notice also that Greek letter omega is similar to the arched image of Nuit, while the letter A corresponds to Hadit, a pentagram. Additional comment. The Bible implies several eons with its Old Testament, New Testament, and Book of Revelations, a future testament. Now there's a overview of terms here that I have in this book, and it's headed as the glossary of terms. And I have here consciousness, the experience of existence or reflection on one's existence that transcends thinking. Even if one tries to doubt one's existence, someone has to exist in order to doubt. In other words, doubt itself is a form of awareness. This awareness of an individual's self can only arise when there is a subject and an object, a self and a not-self. All the things that are not the self allow definition for what a self is, not, and limit the limitless to express itself as that self and not another self. They serve as a mirror and allow for reflection. Knowing. To know means to experience an aspect of the not-self as oneself. The observer is the observed. For this to be possible, subject and object must merge. In yoga, this is known as samadhi. Self, the unchanging experience of existence or awareness. It is that part of oneself that does not change. Not self. Thoughts, emotions, and the physical body, things that change with time. Thought is equated with time because time is experienced relative to the observer and may be stopped by the cessation of thought. At this point, the self returns to no thing, that is. Sun, a symbol of consciousness, or the individual's self. The sun is the source of life about which other planets in the universe rotate. The sun was observed to rise or resurrect in the east and set in the west daily, parallel to one's individual consciousness, daily in sleep and waking, and with the changing of the seasons. The sun was also observed to return with strength after the changing of the seasons, dying in the winter and coming back to light in the spring. This may be the source of the word east air, which takes place in the spring. The sun was equated with male deities and the myth of the dying god. Just as the sun is the source of life in the physical world, so is the invisible sun the source of the very universe itself existentially. Because the sun only appears to set, death itself will be defeated in the eon of the sun, because the child of the sun and moon. Unfortunately, Crowley, he appeared on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album, a former residence of his being procured by Jimmy Page, was partly responsible for laying the ground for the liberal philosophies responsible for belittling marriage and initiating the counterculture of the 60s. Will is the self that transcends the polarities. Love must reflect and be as true a foundation as the unchanging eternal self. Else it declare itself false. So marriage and family must be based on unconditional love. This love must emanate from a central point in family to encompass the larger family, the brothers and sisters of the world. This understanding is absolutely crucial if we are to achieve heaven on earth. It is truly unfortunate that so few magicians have any real interest in politics. Although many politicians have made an effort to study the effects of the traditional family, their arguments fail to carry the overwhelming conviction that comes from seeing the big picture when standing free of the forest populated by thought. Former politician Dan Quayle says, I found that ordinary working Americans, rather than Washington officials or political pundits, are the experts in creating healthy families. Further, Dan Quayle argues in his book, The American Family, when primetime TV has Murphy Brown, a character who supposedly epitomizes today's intelligent, highly paid professional woman, mocking the importance of fathers by bearing a child alone and calling it just another lifestyle choice. This demonstrates the mass mind, and how people are swayed by media and peer pressure rather than taking their guidance from the inner light of consciousness. Quayle expands on the above statement with, the media decision makers give the impression that American people can't understand what is happening without constant analysis and interpretation by the media elite themselves. And the following: couples should use every possible means to make their marriage strong and keep their families united rather than succumbing to the pro-divorce messages that permeate our culture. Whether you place your trust in scripture, history, science, reason, or common sense, all evidence suggests that strong families are the only earthly hope for the future of this or any other civilization. Try as we may to improve our society, our efforts will be in vain if we lose sight of that central truth. The effect of divorce on children is cited by many as controversial, although to some it appears obvious that a healthy family is composed of both biological parents. Stephanie Marson in her book writes, for many of these kids, divorce represents the end of their family as they had known it, and also the loss of the relationship with their fathers. As Pedro, a 23-year-old graphic designer, looks back, he recalls the pain of growing up without a male role model. The worst part of my parents' divorce was that I missed my dad. The following piece from the Gnostic Mass attests the essential relationship of members of a family to the higher sphere of consciousness. Women, glory to thee from waiting womb. Men, glory to thee from earth unplowed. Women, glory to thee from virgin vowed. Men, glory to thee, true unity of the eternal Trinity. Women, glory to thee, thou sire and dam, and self of I am that I am. Men, glory to thee beyond all term, thy spring of sperm, thy seed and germ. Women, glory to thee, eternal Son, thou one in three, thou three in one. Chorus, glory and worship be to thee, sap of the world ash wonder tree. And that was by Crowley. For further information, see my chapters on divine geometry and duality, ego, and the devil, as well as Metaphysica. And that concludes the chapter on the formula of the sun.